I work with a lot of couples, and many of them deal with the same issue that I'm going to talk about, because whenever you call me, it's because of conflict of some sort, or you wouldn't be calling me. We're not getting along, we're not talking right, my spouse is leaving me, we're not leaving each other, but we just don't connect, blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the issues that I deal with a lot are one spouse is overly loud and, as I say, overly passionate, and the other one is more quiet and can't even stand the loudness, or as they call it, the screaming of the other spouse. Now, it's funny because that's also true in my own marriage, and it's also true in my other relationships. So recently I've dealt with yet another couple, and they're struggling in this very area. And so I'd like to talk about it because this is probably something you watching this video have had to deal with. So in the sociology, psychology, communication world, it's called the demand withdrawal pattern. One spouse demands, the other one withdraws. If you want to do it in layperson's terms, is one person is much more aggressive in their communication style and the other one is much more passive. So I think about people, so let's start with people like me. So we want to get the issue out there, we want to resolve it, and so a conversation might start out normal toned, and actually the tone I'm using now is considered normal tone to me and many of them, because it's like, I'm so excited about this topic. But it's like, hey honey, we need to talk about this. Well, what do you want to say? Well, I'm talking about it now. Well, let's do that. You're not listening to me, blah, blah, blah. And even if I say the right words, it might get like, you know, this is what I'm trying to say. Why are you not getting it? Or blah, blah, blah. Those are just some random words to communicate the point that I'm trying to make. The other person may instantly be thinking, ugh, you're too loud, and they pull back. Well, one of the characteristics involved in these two persons is that one is fight and the other one is flight. And you'll often hear from the one who's flight, and my husband used to say it to me all the time, you love to fight. And I'm like, I hate fighting. I would love to just get along with you. Well, then why are you always fighting? I'm not fighting. I'm just trying to get you to hear what I'm saying. You see how it sounds? So I get it, and I see why the person who's flight gets stressed out by the person like me who's fight. Now, both of them want resolution, but the person who's being passive tends to think, see, I'm the better person because I'm calmly dealing with the situation. Which is a funny thing, because calmly dealing with the situation often means I'm quiet, I'm not saying anything at all. Well, that's not calmly dealing with the situation. That's running from the situation. But there's value in how both people handle this, and there's a problem with how both people handle this. So let's take the people like me, for instance. And again, put yourself in one of these two positions. People like me want to engage the conflict because we don't want it to fester. We absolutely are like, I just want this to be over. And I know it's not going to be over if we don't deal with it. So if I'm trying to get it across and you're not getting it, then I'll try and come from another angle. If you're not getting it, I'll try another angle. And as I may or may not be getting frustrated, I am often getting louder. As I get louder, it causes you or the other person to get quieter or absent or disengaged completely. So the value of someone whose communication style is like mine is that, hey, at least when Christine Bacon or this aggressive communicator is upset, you know why they're upset. Then at least you know what your enemy looks like. You know what the problem is. The problem associated with communicators like me is that I and we tend to be so loud or so quote unquote direct or in your face. And it's unintentional. Cut your spouse slack, cut your child slack, cut your best friend slack, or whoever it is. We don't mean to be in your face. We're like, I love you enough. Take it as a sign of love. I love you enough that I want to deal with this, because if I didn't love you, I'd be like, to heck with this. I wouldn't even communicate with you. So it is a sign of love that the person wants to engage the issue. The problem with the people like me is we don't understand that everybody's not like us. They don't appreciate direct communication. They don't appreciate wanting to get it over with right away. They just want to think about it and maybe talk about it later or not at all. But you don't want, even if you're right, you don't want to be so direct, so in your face, so dealing with conflict head on that people run from you. Because Christ made us all different. So he's teaching people like me to back off. You got to back off a little. You got to bring the tone down. I'm never going to not be a passionate person. That's what my husband fell in love with me for. But I am going to have to learn to curb that passion. And this Lent, it's a really good time because one of the virtues we talk about is temperance. Okay, this isn't working, so let me just bring it down a notch. Let me try to say what he or she needs to hear and the way they need to hear it. I have a child, and she and I were estranged for a while, and she was actually the one who said, look, Mom, you're like a bull in a china shop, and you just go into the issue. And I'm like, yeah, that's good, because then you know the issue. Not if I'm dealing with a person like she is, who's like, no, that's too much for me. It's too strong of a personality. I want someone who's a bit more gentle. That might be the virtue God is trying to get you to deal with. Be more gentle. Because remember, God wants us to be selfless, which means you don't handle conflict the way you want. You handle conflict also the way that the other person wants. It's a give and take. So like this most recent couple that I'm dealing with, you know, the wife is like, I'm trying so hard to hold back my emotions. Good for you. It doesn't mean you have to be someone you're not, but present yourself in a way that makes it, and here's an important word, safe for your spouse to lean in, especially if you're fight and he or she is flight, especially if your spouse is a flight conflict person. If I don't want them to fly and run away from conflict, then I'm going to have to back off and let them feel like they can lean in. It's a dance. It's actually selflessness. It's actually Christianity. It's actually Catholicism. It is what Christ called us to do. Now I'd like to talk to you who is the conflict avoider. You may be the one that's like quiet and calm, and you may answer with one or two words or nothing at all. And while that may look good to you, it's like, see, my other friends, they're just like me. They don't scream, they don't yell. And you use your spouses or your friends or your parents or your child's yelling as your get out of jail free card going, see, I don't have to deal with this because that's your problem. Well, no, you have a problem too, because if this is a person you love, then you need to lean in and help resolve this conflict. See, this idea that saying nothing at all or staying completely calm is good. But saying nothing at all or never raising your voice is the best way to handle a conflict. You're wrong. Because one of the best, well, let me start with the problem. The problem with that style is that when you're upset, or when we're upset and you're not responding, we don't know what you're thinking. We don't know what your issue is. And that doesn't give your loved one anything to latch onto. Remember, this is about give and take. This is about becoming, I'm kind of going to the solution here, becoming uncomfortable or more comfortable with the uncomfortable. So the problem with your way of handling conflict is, I might be fight, but you're flying. And if you run, if you leave, you don't talk to them, you go someplace else, I'm out of this relationship. You become estranged from that family member, you too are part of the problem. If you allow yourself to believe this relationship is toxic, we'll never get along, it's the way it's always going to be, no, that's Satan speaking to you too. Because Satan is the king of division, and he wants to divide your spouse, he wants to divide your marriage, he wants to divide you from your child, he wants to divide you from everyone. And you are stronger than you realize. And God is saying to you, no, Sally, Jim, Fred, Greta, you need to be comfortable with leaning into this conflict for the sake of love, for the sake of staying unified, especially if this is your spouse. The gifting you have is that when we're getting all passionate, you can say, hey, I will listen, I will respond, but I need to keep you at a better level. Don't say things like, you're too loud, you're screaming, because that just puts us on the defensive, and that's not fair. Just like it's not fair when I say, see, you don't care. That's not fair. True love doesn't look for attacks to lob at the other person. And what I'm asking you to do is really be critical of yourself. We are all so natural at looking at our spouse or looking at the other person, being critical of them. I could tell you all of Danny's flaws. Most of them. I've been with him for 40 years. But boy, he sure could tell you mine. So what I'm doing this video on is, no, you look at you. So I'm thinking of a particular couple because it's the most recent couple. And what I've been saying to one spouse is, I get it that your spouse has been kind of loud and overly passionate, but look at how she has been calming down. She'll never be you. She will never, ever in a bazillion years be as calm as you, be as withdrawn as you. You fell in love with, the bubbly, passionate side. You just don't like it when it goes too far this direction. But then you too, you have a tendency to always run, and that frustrates that person. So when I say to you, you need to stop flying, right? Fight or flight, stop flying. And I've said, I'll just say she in this case, when she's pulling back, that is a sign of her love saying, I'm so willing to try to become better. She'll never be perfect. But then your job is to lean into the discomfort. I don't want to deal with this conflict, but I'm going to. And you're both going to screw up. But then Satan, because this has happened to me in the past, like, see, it's never going to work. This is toxic. Told you it wouldn't work. Come on. You got to try it at least 2, 3, 10, 15 times. And instead of looking at where you fail as two people, look at where you're succeeding. Go, okay, well, my spouse, my daughter, my mom, they did kind of hold back a little longer than I expected, longer than they used to. That's where Jesus wants you to focus. Satan wants you to go, see, they failed. Christ says, look at that, how much they love you. Look at how they're trying. It's better this time than it was the time before, and it's going to be even better the next time. Because you're practicing and you're learning a new style of conflict management. In the same breath, your spouse is going to look at you and be like, wow, usually Jim runs. Usually Jim's like, out of here. But I do see him at least trying a little longer to deal with conflict. Remember, if you're the person like me, they can't handle too much like we can. We could talk all day, and not talk all day, but we can handle conflict for a more extended period of time. If they always ran from conflict, but now they've leaned into it for 20 minutes is usually the magic number for anything I talk about. That's how long it takes for hormones to change from either too high to too low and vice versa. If you're like, wow, they've really been leaning into this conflict to spend 20 minutes, even though there's been no resolution, say, wow, but 20 minutes is longer than they used to do. Back off, go to your corners, go for a jog, go for what, and come back to it tomorrow. Neither of you is perfect. God brought you together for a reason. Your way of handling conflict may be good for you, and you may hang out with other people. Statistics show it. You hang out with people who have a conflict style like you, your best friends and things, and it validates you. See, we're all like this. We must be right. No. Go hang out with a different group of people, and they will disagree with you. I am here to teach you how to love like Jesus loved, though I fail at it every 3 seconds. The goal is selflessness, which is a virtue. And you can grow in your virtues, but it takes exercise. Like going to the gym. You got to start with those baby muscles. You got to lift. First might be lifting 5 pounds before you get to 10 pounds, before you get to 20 pounds. And that certainly doesn't happen in a week or a month. Practice as a way of saying, I love you enough that I'm willing to get uncomfortable enough to learn to be a better man or better woman, better wife or better husband, better mom, better dad, better daughter, better son. That's what Christ wants. Don't please Satan. Don't divide. Don't run. Stay. Deal with it. And if you still can't figure it out, give me a call. I would love to help you. As my husband always says, I'm an expert in conflict because I'm so good at it. Thanks, Dan Bacon. Not really an expert at conflict. I'm just an expert at trying to manage it. What are your thoughts? I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this informational Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.